There's something you want, something you've wanted for a long time, and you've convinced yourself it's impossible. Maybe it's too late. You're too old. You don't have the credentials. You don't have the connections. You don't have the money. You missed the window. Maybe you don't have the talent. You're not smart enough. You're not creative enough. You're not charismatic enough. You're not enough. Maybe the world isn't set up for what you want. The system is rigged. The odds are against you. Other people are more qualified. Other people got there before you. And so you've given up on it, or you're struggling with it, or you're pursuing it in a half-hearted way, while your real belief is, this is impossible for me. But what if the impossibility isn't real? What if the impossibility is just a function of how narrow your consciousness is? What if with an expanded consciousness, the path that looks impossible from the narrow view becomes obvious? By the end of this, you won't just understand that idea. You'll feel your consciousness actually expand. You'll perceive what was hidden, and you'll recognize that what looked impossible from the small view is completely available from the larger one. Let me explain how consciousness and possibility actually work together. Your consciousness is like a lens, and that lens determines what's visible to you. Through a narrow consciousness, only limited things are visible. You can only see what's directly in front of you. You can only perceive solutions that are obvious. You can only imagine outcomes that you've already seen before. A narrow consciousness sees, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the credentials. Therefore, it's impossible. That's a logical conclusion from a narrow perspective. And the person is right. From that perspective, it is impossible. But expand the consciousness even slightly, and suddenly other things become visible. Now you can see, there are people who would fund this. There are ways to structure time differently. There are ways to gain credentials that I didn't know about. Expand it further, and you see, every single person who accomplished this started where I am. The path isn't obvious because I'm not looking from the right altitude. If I change my vantage point, the path appears. This isn't magic. This is a basic principle of perception. Your consciousness, your vantage point, your perspective, your awareness determines what you're capable of perceiving. A person at ground level can't see the city. A person at the top of a building can see the entire city. Same city. Different consciousness. Completely different visibility. And here's what's crucial. The city doesn't change. The person didn't gain magic power. They just moved to a different altitude. They changed their vantage point. That's what expanding consciousness does. It changes your vantage point, and from a different vantage point, you can see what was always there but invisible to you. Let me show you the 3 primary levels of consciousness that exist, because understanding these changes how you relate to what's possible. Level 1. Narrow consciousness. Narrow consciousness is problem-focused. It's, what's wrong? What do I lack? What's stopping me? From narrow consciousness, the world looks like a series of obstacles. And you're right, there are obstacles. But you're only perceiving the obstacles. You're not perceiving the creative solutions, the unexpected resources, the people who could help. Narrow consciousness is survival-oriented. It's, will I be safe? Will I have enough? Will I be okay? And from that orientation, you make conservative choices. You take the safe path. You don't risk, you don't create, you manage. Narrow consciousness is, I am this identity, and this identity is limited. That's just who I am. A person in narrow consciousness says, I'm not a creative person. I'm not good at sales. I'm not lucky. I'm someone things don't work out for. This is just how I am. And from that belief, they don't even try. Why try if it's impossible because of who you are? Level 2. Expanding consciousness. Expanding consciousness is possibility-focused. It's what could work, what resources are available, who could help me. From expanding consciousness, obstacles are still real, but they're solvable. The world looks like a series of puzzles to solve, not problems to be trapped by. Expanding consciousness is curious. It's what if there's a way I haven't seen yet? What if I'm wrong about what's possible? From expanding consciousness, you're willing to try, you're willing to learn, you're willing to experiment. Expanding consciousness is, I am this personality, but underneath I'm something larger. Something that's not limited by this identity. A person in expanding consciousness says, I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try different approaches. I'm willing to see what happens. And from that willingness, they start to move. And as they move, they discover solutions that weren't visible before. Level 3. Vastly expanded consciousness. Vastly expanded consciousness is vision-focused. It's not, how do I solve this problem? It's, what is this trying to become? What is the intelligence organizing all of this trying to express? From vastly expanded consciousness, you're not focused on yourself and your limitations. You're focused on the larger vision, on what's trying to be born through you. Vastly expanded consciousness is, I am a conduit. I am an expression of intelligence. I am participating in something larger than myself. And from that place, amazing things happen, not because you force them, but because you get yourself out of the way. From vastly expanded consciousness, you say, here's the vision, here's what I'm called to do, and I'm going to say yes to every opportunity that's aligned with this, even if it doesn't make sense to my mind. And then, synchronicities start to happen. Resources appear, people show up, doors open. Not because you became special, but because you stopped arguing with what's trying to emerge through you. Now let me show you the 4 primary ways to expand your consciousness. Expansion method number 1, exposure to larger thinking. The first way is to be exposed to larger perspectives, larger possibilities, larger thinking than what you currently have. If the only perspectives you have are the ones you've already thought, your consciousness stays narrow. But if you expose yourself to people who've solved the problem you're trying to solve, your consciousness expands, not because they give you a solution, but because they show you that it's possible. They show you a higher altitude from which to look. If you're trying to write a book but you've never read a truly great book, you don't have an altitude high enough to know what's possible. But once you read that book, once you experience great writing, your consciousness about what's possible expands. Now you know it's possible. The practice is simple. Find people, through books, podcasts, interviews, documentaries, who are doing what you want to do, or who are operating at a consciousness level higher than yours, and study them. Not to copy them, but to expand your altitude, to see what's possible from a higher vantage point. Expansion method number 2, direct experience. The second way is through direct experience, through doing something you've never done before. Because consciousness expands through experience in a way that thinking alone can't achieve. If you think, maybe I could be confident, but you've never had the experience of being confident, the thinking doesn't change much. But if you have a small experience of confidence, even 5 minutes where you felt genuinely confident, your consciousness about yourself has shifted. Now you know it's possible. Now you know your body is capable of it. The practice is, do something that challenges you, that takes you slightly outside your comfort zone, that gives you a direct experience of capability. It might be, take a class in something you've always been afraid of. It might be, have a conversation you've been avoiding. It might be, create something and share it, even if it's not perfect. It might be, say no to something that doesn't serve you. Through these experiences, your consciousness shifts. You're no longer just thinking about possibility. You're experiencing it. Expansion method number 3, intentional perspective shifts. The third way is through intentional perspective shifts, through consciously choosing to look from a different altitude. This is a practice you can do right now, and it's remarkably powerful. Here's how. Take a problem you're facing, something that looks impossible or unsolvable from your current perspective. Now, imagine you're looking at it from a higher altitude, from the perspective of someone much older and wiser, from the perspective of someone who has solved this problem, from the perspective of the most creative person you know. From that higher altitude, what do you see? What becomes visible? What are options you didn't see before? You're not changing your life yet. You're just changing your vantage point. But that changes what's visible. And once something is visible, once you can imagine it, you can move toward it. Expansion method number 4, releasing certainty. The fourth way is by releasing your certainty. Your certainty about what's possible and what's impossible. Your certainty is like concrete. It hardens your perspective. It says, I know how things work. I know what's possible. I know who I am. And certainty creates a narrow consciousness, because certainty closes inquiry. If you're certain, there's nothing left to explore. But what if you released that certainty? What if you said, I don't know. I don't know what's possible. I don't know what I'm capable of. I don't know how this could work. The practice is simple. Notice where you're certain about something being impossible, and then gently say, what if I'm wrong? What if I don't know? And let yourself not know. From not knowing, your consciousness is open. From open consciousness, new things become visible. Now I need to tell you something that sounds contradictory but is actually true. When your consciousness expands to vastly expanded, when you move beyond yourself and your personal desires, something unexpected happens. You become more careful about what you pursue. Because from vastly expanded consciousness, you're not pursuing everything that's possible. You're pursuing what's aligned with the larger vision, what's yours to do. And there's a filtering that happens, a wisdom that says, just because this is possible doesn't mean it's mine. Just because I could achieve this doesn't mean I should. From narrow consciousness, you're limited by fear and doubt. From expanding consciousness, you're open to possibility. From vastly expanded consciousness, you're guided by wisdom. So the path is not think positively and you can have anything. The path is expand your consciousness, and the right things reveal themselves, and you have the wisdom to pursue what's actually yours to do. Let me give you a 30-day practice that shifts you from narrow consciousness to expanding to vastly expanded. Days 1 through 5, exposure. Study someone who is doing what you want to do. Read their book, listen to their podcast, watch interviews, learn about their path. You're not copying them, you're expanding your altitude by seeing that what you want is possible. Every day, spend 30 minutes in this exposure. Let your consciousness expand through contact with their larger perspective. Days 6 through 15, direct experience. Every day, do something that challenges you slightly, that takes you out of your comfort zone, that gives you a direct experience of your capability. It doesn't have to be big, it can be small. But each day, do something you haven't done before, say something you've been afraid to say, create something and share it. Practice being confident, even if it's just for 5 minutes. You're gathering direct evidence that you're more capable than you thought. Days 16 through 25, perspective shifts. Every day, take a problem or limitation you're facing and look at it from a higher altitude. Ask, from a much higher perspective, what would I see? What would be obvious? What options would be available? Write down what you see from that higher altitude. You're training your consciousness to expand when needed. Days 26 through 30, integration and vision. For these final days, spend time in vastly expanded consciousness. Not focused on your personal desires, focused on the larger vision. Ask, what is trying to be born through me? What is my higher purpose? What am I actually called to do? And then ask, if I trust that, what becomes possible? Write it down. Feel it. You're moving from personal striving to aligned purpose. When you actually expand your consciousness, when you move from narrow to expanding to vastly expanded, everything shifts. First, what looked impossible now looks like a puzzle to solve. You still have to do the work, but you're no longer fighting the belief that it's impossible. Then, you start to perceive resources you couldn't see before, people who could help, paths that weren't visible, opportunities that were always there. Then, other people respond differently, because you're operating from an expanded place. You're not desperate, you're not trying to force. You're clear, you're open, and people trust that. Then, the synchronicities start, not because the universe changed, but because you can now see what was always there. You can connect dots that were hidden before. And most importantly, you stop fighting your limitations and start collaborating with your larger self. You stop trying and start allowing. You stop struggling and start creating. When you start to expand your consciousness, fear shows up, and it's disguised as reality. It says, you're being naive, you're ignoring facts. The world is hard. Not everyone can do this. And there's truth in those statements. But the question is, are you letting those true statements limit your consciousness? Or are you letting them inform your choices? You can acknowledge, yes, some things are harder than other things. Yes, some people have advantages. Yes, there are real obstacles. And still move forward, still expand, still explore what becomes possible. The fear is trying to keep you small, because small feels safe. But small has cost you. It's cost you your aliveness. It's cost you your vision. So when the fear shows up, you acknowledge it. I hear you, and I'm expanding anyway. Each time you choose expansion despite the fear, you're training your nervous system. It's safe to expand. It's safe to see possibility. It's safe to claim what's mine. Let me crystallize what this is really about. With consciousness, all things become possible doesn't mean you can have anything. It means, depending on your level of consciousness, certain things are visible and others are invisible. From narrow consciousness, 95% of possibility is invisible. From expanding consciousness, 60% is visible. From vastly expanded consciousness, almost everything is visible. And from that visibility, you can choose. You can move. You can create. The kingdom within is not a place where impossible becomes possible. The kingdom within is a state of consciousness from which you perceive the infinite possibilities that were always there. You're not changing reality. You're expanding your consciousness so you can perceive the reality that exists. And that perception, that sight, is what allows you to step into what's actually yours. Go practice expanding. There comes a moment on every path of expansion where something very quiet begins to happen. Nothing dramatic changes on the outside. The same house, the same job, the same relationships, the same responsibilities, the same ordinary life. And yet, everything feels different. The sky seems wider. Silence feels fuller. Small moments carry a depth they never carried before. The laughter of a child, the wind moving through the trees, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of rain against a window. None of these things changed. You changed. Your consciousness changed. And once consciousness changes, reality is never experienced the same way again. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their circumstances before they allow themselves to feel peace. They say, when I finally make enough money, when I finally find love, when I finally heal, when everything works out, then I'll be at peace. But consciousness reveals the opposite. Peace isn't the reward. Peace is the doorway. The calmer your consciousness becomes, the more clearly life begins to organize itself. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because you're finally able to cooperate with it. Imagine trying to look into a lake during a violent storm. The water is crashing. The surface is distorted. Nothing beneath it can be seen. Now imagine the wind stops. The surface becomes perfectly still. Suddenly you can see all the way to the bottom. The bottom was always there. The stillness simply revealed it. Your consciousness works exactly the same way. When your mind is constantly disturbed by fear, comparison, regret, self-doubt, anxiety, you can't clearly perceive your own life. You mistake distortion for reality. You mistake temporary emotion for permanent truth. You mistake fear for wisdom. But the moment your consciousness becomes still, everything becomes visible, including yourself, especially yourself, because perhaps the greatest illusion you've ever believed is that you are the voice inside your head. That voice has been talking for years, sometimes encouraging, often criticizing, always commenting. It tells you what you should have done, what you should become, what everyone thinks about you, what might happen tomorrow, what went wrong yesterday. It never seems to stop. And after hearing it for so many years, you started believing it was you. But notice something. If you can hear the voice, who is listening? If you can observe your thoughts, who is observing them? The observer cannot be the thought. The awareness cannot be the noise. The sky is never the clouds. The ocean is never the waves. Consciousness is not the endless stream of thinking. Consciousness is the silent presence that notices every thought appearing and disappearing. That realization changes everything. Because if you are the awareness, then thoughts lose their authority. Fear can still appear, but you don't become fear. Doubt can still appear, but you don't become doubt. Anger may arise, sadness may arise, excitement may arise, joy may arise. They become visitors instead of identities, clouds passing across an infinite sky. And suddenly you discover something remarkable. Nothing inside you actually needs fixing, only remembering. You've spent years trying to improve yourself, trying to become worthy, trying to become enough, trying to become spiritual, trying to become successful, trying to become confident, trying to become enlightened. But consciousness whispers something very different. You are not becoming. You are remembering. The oak tree doesn't become an oak tree. It unfolds into what it already contains. The butterfly doesn't manufacture wings. It reveals what was hidden inside the cocoon. The sunrise doesn't create light. It reveals the light that was already waiting beyond the horizon. Perhaps your life has never been about becoming someone new. Perhaps it has always been about remembering who you've always been beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, beneath every story you've collected about yourself. Think back to when you were very young, before the world told you who you were, before grades defined intelligence, before appearance defined beauty, before careers defined value, before success defined worth. There was a natural openness, a curiosity, a presence. Children don't stare at flowers because they're trying to become mindful. They simply are. They don't calculate whether a sunset is productive. They experience it. They don't ask if they're enough before they laugh. They simply laugh. That original consciousness still exists within you. It never disappeared. It was simply covered by expectations, covered by disappointment, covered by comparison, covered by fear. Every practice you've explored throughout this journey has not been adding something new. It has been removing what never truly belonged. Each episode has peeled away another layer, until what remains is what has always been here, awareness itself. And once awareness becomes your home, life begins flowing differently. You stop chasing every opportunity. Instead, you recognize the ones that belong to you. You stop forcing relationships. Instead, you cultivate genuine connection. You stop trying to impress everyone. Instead, you become deeply authentic. Ironically, that authenticity becomes far more attractive than performance ever was, because people don't truly respond to perfection. They respond to presence. Have you ever met someone who wasn't especially wealthy, or famous, or exceptionally talented, yet simply being around them made you feel calm, safe, seen, inspired? They carried something invisible. That invisible quality wasn't charisma. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't personality. It was presence. Expanded consciousness naturally radiates presence. You don't have to manufacture it. It emerges. Because when you're fully here, others instinctively feel permission to be fully here too. And perhaps this is how consciousness quietly transforms the world. Not through arguments. Not through force. Not through convincing everyone else to agree with you, but through embodiment. Every peaceful person makes peace more possible. Every compassionate person makes compassion more visible. Every awakened person reminds countless others that awakening is possible, without saying a single word. You may never know whose life changes simply because you chose to become more conscious. A stranger who watches your patience. A child who learns from your kindness. A friend encouraged by your courage. A coworker inspired by your calm. Expansion ripples outward. Just like fear spreads, peace spreads too. Love spreads too. Awareness spreads too. Every conscious decision quietly influences the collective consciousness of humanity. far more than you realize. You don't have to save the entire world. You simply have to stop abandoning your own consciousness. Because every time you return to awareness, the world becomes slightly more aware through you. And perhaps that's the true meaning of service. Not sacrificing yourself, but remembering yourself so completely that everyone around you feels invited to remember themselves as well. There will still be difficult days. Consciousness does not remove humanity. You will still lose people. You will still experience grief. You will still face uncertainty. There will still be seasons when answers don't arrive immediately. But now you'll meet those moments differently. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this moment asking me to become aware of?" That single shift transforms suffering into wisdom, obstacles into teachers, pain into compassion, loss into deeper appreciation. Nothing becomes wasted. Everything becomes part of awakening. And one day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you'll notice something extraordinary. The future no longer frightens you the way it once did. Not because you suddenly know what's coming, but because you've finally discovered something more reliable than certainty. Presence. Presence doesn't promise tomorrow. Presence makes today enough. And from enoughness, creation becomes joyful instead of desperate. Love becomes generous instead of needy. Success becomes meaningful instead of obsessive. Life becomes something to experience rather than something to survive. This has always been the invitation. Not to escape the world, but to enter it consciously. Not to reject your humanity, but to illuminate it with awareness. Not to become extraordinary, but to discover the extraordinary nature of ordinary existence. Every breath, every conversation, every sunrise, every ending, every beginning, every challenge, every miracle, all of it unfolding within the same infinite field of consciousness you've been exploring this entire journey. So as this series comes to a close, don't think of it as an ending, think of it as a beginning. Because information can inspire you for a day, motivation can move you for a week, but transformed consciousness changes the rest of your life. From this moment forward, walk a little slower, listen a little deeper, observe your thoughts before believing them, choose presence before reaction, choose awareness before assumption, choose love before fear whenever you can. Not because you'll do it perfectly, but because each conscious choice expands the next one. Remember this whenever life feels overwhelming. You are not trapped inside your circumstances. You are the awareness experiencing them. You are not limited by every thought you think. You are the consciousness witnessing those thoughts. You are not merely surviving existence. You are participating in the unfolding of something infinitely larger than yourself. And the kingdom within has never been somewhere else. It has never been hidden behind achievement, or wealth, or status, or approval. It has always been waiting in the one place you've rarely stopped to look. Here, now, within. So breathe, become still, return to awareness, and allow your life to become the greatest expression of consciousness you can imagine. Because once consciousness remembers itself, nothing is impossible in the way it once appeared. Not because the world became different, but because you finally learned how to see. And once you truly see, you never return to sleep again.